We are live, and I am publishing the post. Okay, there we go. The YouTube notification is out there.
Cool. Okay.
Friday.
I'm not in the. I'm not like the main person in the dashboard on StreamYard this time, so I can't see. There's a lot of stuff you can't see when you're on this end.
Ooh, what can't you see right now?
You can't see the number of live viewers.
Really? That's odd.
Yeah. And obviously, I don't have any control either over like featuring comments in the live stream.
You can quickly sign in to StreamYard.
Really? That fixes it?
Shouldn't I think it should, because you'd be signed in and just access, and then access.
Wait, so whenever I'm the host, you're able to do all of that?
I can always see the live view count. I've always been able to see the live view count.
Oh, interesting. I don't even see.
Ooh. Hang on, everybody. We're just about to start. It is Friday again. Hello. You see everything now? Nope, it's nothing.
Nope.
So there's only one admin possible. That is unfortunate.
Apparently. Okay. Well, how many people are watching?
There are 7 right now.
7. Hello, 7 people.
Lucky
all right,
7.
Let's just get started. Welcome to Alphabet Scoop. This is episode 102. I'm your host, Stephen Hall, and I'm joined once again by Abner Lee. Hello. And that's the first time we've done that full intro in a really long time, I think.
Yeah.
So how are you doing?
I know it's the middle of the month. It's almost the fall. It is the fall. It's getting super busy. It's still super busy tech-wise. So just
all the YouTubers call it Techtober, right?
Yeah, Techtober. Which could be any month, honestly.
Yeah. At least in the Google world, it's a little bit different for Google reporters or for us, because it's not like, a lot of these YouTubers, a lot of their entire schedule and content strategy or content schedule all revolves around, or calendar, I should say, is all revolving around every smartphone launch. And so, in October, you get the iPhones and the OnePlus phones and the Google phone. And, well, at least this year we do. And for us, we get to pretty much ignore a lot of it. Not all of it, but a lot of it. A lot of the stuff is the iPhone. And while we don't completely ignore its existence, it's just not something we really have to worry about, because the great people over at 9to5Mac cover it so exhaustively. So, speaking of all that, I guess the first thing that we can do today is talk a little bit about Pixel 5. And the reviews hit this week. What?
And it's available in Europe, and I believe parts of Asia. Asia Pacific.
Yeah. What do you think the reason is for that? Do you have any thoughts about that? It's really weird that Google's launching that. Is it a COVID thing? And if it is a COVID thing, why what is it? What is it about COVID that's making this happen?
It has to be the millimeter wave aspects of the Pixel 5 that's specific to America, to the States. So if it's not that, I have no idea why, because we know this is a uniquely different phone in terms of hardware.
The only other thing I can think of to compare it to is the current situation with the iPhones, which, for those that don't know, the standard iPhone 12 and the standard iPhone 12 Pro, both 6.1 inch models, are both shipping in a couple weeks or a week, or I don't know, something. It's pretty soon. And then the Mini and the Pro Max are both going to be delayed a couple weeks, it looks like. So there's also a 2-week delay happening on the Apple side of things. I'm wondering if it might just have to do with, I don't know, production ramp up or something. I don't know what could possibly be happening on the production side, but
yeah, in many ways, it's an achievement. It's a triumph that people are still getting their their end of year phones. It's honestly, in light of everything else that happened this year, that the structure, that the supply lines, marketing, etc., that it's still business as usual.
yeah, it's still a well-oiled machine, and it's functioning. And the TikTok, I guess, release cycle has not changed. Good point. And so let's talk a little bit about Pixel 5, which it's Google's latest flagship, which it's kind of weird to say that because Google, as we've mentioned many times on the show before, is not they're not launching a true flagship this year, at least not in the sense of these top of the line $1,000 phones that Samsung and Apple and others are doing. Google decided this year to bring the entry level price, or the entry price for its top of the line flagship, down $100 from $799 last year, I believe, to $699 this year. And that's with taking into account the very expensive millimeter wave modules that are in the phone, which are arguably pointless. But they also bump the price up by $100, as we can see definitively with the Pixel 4a Pixel 4a 5G on Verizon, which is an exclusive available with millimeter wave, and it costs literally $100 more. And on the Pixel 5, if Google hadn't included this millimeter wave, technology, it wouldn't have been even $699. It probably would have been $599. So I guess that it's kind of a moot point, but the Pixel 5 is now going head to head, not with the higher end phones from Apple and Samsung, but more this new kind of what we call mid range now. It's funny how the definitions of things change.
We need a new word.
Yeah, right. It's like, for a while, the low end was $100 or $200, the mid range was $400, and the high end was $600 for a long time. And obviously the inflation of smartphone prices as phones have matured as a platform and been commoditized. Now the high end is $1,000 and up, especially if you start to get into the realm of foldable phones. And the low end is now what? The Pixel 4a 5G, or the Pixel 4a, which is $399, and you can find it on sale for $299, as was the case with the 3a. $349. Sorry,
$349.
Yeah. And so that's the low end, and now the mid range is this kind of like $700 phone, which it wasn't that long ago, where $700 for a phone would have been, that would have been, not just the top model, it would have been the higher capacity top model. So yeah, I mean, now it's up against the Galaxy S20 Fan Edition, and it's also.
I was critical of that name, Fan Edition, initially, but I don't know if Samsung is going to put FE, make any other FE editions of their phone, but it kind of works in terms of something that isn't a mid-range, something that really isn't a mid-range, and something that's definitely not a flagship. So they had a particularly interesting foresight to do that, really.
Yeah. Samsung's branding is weird with Fan Edition. I mean, apparently they did studies to see if that branding was going to work, and it's just weird to me. It doesn't compel me at all. I mean, maybe it's because I'm not a fan, or not necessarily like a fanatic, using the word fan in the most literal sense. I'm not a fanatic about the Samsung Galaxy line. So yeah, it doesn't appeal to me at all. But Apple, on the other hand, kind of did a weird thing this year. Last year, they put the the iPhone 11 right there in that, what was it, $749 or $699 price range. So they're branding their kind of mainline the iPhone number, iPhone 4, iPhone 5, iPhone 6. They're putting that main line of phones right in this pocket of $699, $749, $799. And in this year, it's the iPhone 12 mini that's $699, and the iPhone 12 I think is $799. So it's all kind of similar range of category. And it seems like Google has taken on the strategy of Apple, which is we're just going to call this phone in this segment the standard, the Pixel 5. And they're taking on the standard branding from last year, or the Pixel 4 line was, the higher end model. So I'm wondering if Google will continue with that and follow, and if Google does decide to get back in to doing more premium top of the line phones for maybe as a hobby or maybe just because they can. I'm wondering if they'll go with like a pro branding or something so that they'll be directly aligned with Apple still. Speaking of that, before we dive into Pixel 5 reviews and maybe talk more specifically about the phone, didn't Rick Osterloh in an interview this right around the time of the launch night in event, didn't he say something along the lines of Soli is not done, or like it's
Yes.
like they're gonna keep the technology around for future devices or something vague like that?
Yeah, he did very vague. He basically said, well, when he phrased it, he said that Soli and motion sense, Soli and motion sense were coming back to the devices. He distinctly mentioned gestures, which we're going to talk about the Nest Thermostat in a bit, but there are no gestures in the Nest Thermostat. So
Yeah,
I'm not sure if I'm not sure if they were referring to this Nest accessory or another phone, but I don't think his comments have come into fruition yet.
yeah. I feel like they're all just rewatching the original Project Soli debut video where they showed, this really fine-tuned, I guess, air control for all these various devices, and they're all just rewatching that. They're all just rewatching that video and just imagining all of their devices with that actually being functional. But in reality, when Soli was added to the Pixel 4, it just wasn't that. Like it just wasn't. I mean, I remember the original Soli video was really cool, showing Soli integrated with some apps, for instance, like a Photoshop or something, with the ability to fine grain control, like something like the thickness of the of the brush stroke, or something like that, and you could just make moves in tiny little movements with your fingers and control that with such precision, and that just is not at all what the Pixel 4 ended up being. Pixel 4 ended up being this weird wavy thing where you just kind of like, you just like wave in front of your phone to change tracks and stuff. And it's not at all the same thing that was originally imagined. So anyways, let's quickly talk about Pixel 5, and then we'll jump into Google Workspace and Google Chat and stuff like that. Pixel 5 reviews have come in. Our Damien actually did today hands-on with Pixel 5. I posted his hands-on with the Pixel 5, talking about 5 things that you'll love about the Pixel 5. And he mentioned these. Go through them real quickly, and maybe we can touch on some reverse wireless charging, which is actually something that leaked. For those that don't know, it leaked a long time ago. This was what, Google I/O 2019 or something. It was a long time ago, where this actually leaked in Android. There was an image of an asset that was left in the last major version of Android. I think at Google I/O, and it showed a phone with reverse wireless charging, and everyone was like, Pixel 5, and it ended up being Pixel 5. There's the textured rear panel. I'm personally a huge fan of that. There's the larger battery, which is kind of Google trying to fix their complete botching of the battery situation with the Pixel 4. And then uniform screen bezels. So this is actually the first mainstream Android phone. I think that kind of manages to capture this fully uniform screen bezel thing, or all the way around the device, like the iPhone does. And then it's kind of just a compact form factor. So it's actually smaller than the Pixel 4a 5G, and it's about the same size as the Pixel 4
it's
last
pretty
year.
close.
So, I mean, I guess we can just briefly touch on these. What of these features is most interesting to you? What stands out to you most about Pixel 5? What's your overall takeaway, I guess, in a sentence or two on this year's mainstream Pixel model before we move on?
I am surprised they made such a compact. I'm surprised that they made a relatively compact phone as their main premium flagship device, or whatever you want to call it. It's I don't know, if you hear what people say on the internet, you would think that everybody wants the biggest phone possible, and instead Google ended up with this compact phone. They didn't do an XL. They put everything they had. They put all the technological advancements with the wireless charging back and the uniform bezels into this one phone. And honestly, I'm surprised.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because we actually have data. 9to5 Google has data to show that the Pixel 4 XL vastly oversold the standard Pixel 4 last year. I think for multiple reasons. One being, I think if you're going to spend $1,000 on a phone, you're going to pitch the extra $100 to get the one that has the larger battery and the larger display. And I mean, also, I think it's actually been proven over the life of the mainline Pixel phones that the XL models have sold better than the standard models, and the standard models have been more of an accommodation to people that for some reason want the smaller device.
Absolutely. Like historically, they've always put the new technology in the biggest phone. The 2XL had the significantly improved design, had the LG's design, it had the smoother, more modern look. The Pixel 3XL had the notch, which, since that was the year's technological fad, I guess that was the more advanced one. With the 4, obviously the larger battery. So this can be viewed through one or two lenses. One is that Google reversed course and decided that maybe there's something in the smaller phone. And two, maybe Google's hardware designers are now able to do everything they want hardware wise and put it into the small phone, that they've picked up efficiencies and just knowledge from making a phone for the past few years.
Yeah, I'll give you a third lens to view this through, and I think it might be the option that is the right one. And that is, we actually also have data to show that the Pixel 3a vastly outsold the 3a XL. And I don't think that has anything to do with people preferring the smaller size. I think that has to do with price.
Purely,
and I think that,
absolutely.
Yeah, purely. And so the Pixel 3a sold the most units because it was the cheapest phone. And I think that might be the big lesson, the big takeaway that Google had from trying to sell these Pixel 4. Well, and on this note, I guess it's perfect little bow to tie this conversation up. I think Google had to realize that they weren't able to compete at these high prices. If you're going to spend $1,000 on a phone, it's a distinctly different decision than spending $300 on a phone, and it's a distinctly different type of buyer, a distinctly different demographic. And I think a lot of people that are spending that $800, $900, $1,000, maybe even more, are going to pick the Samsung flagship, or they're going to pick the Apple flagship, because there are ways that Google can't compete with those phones. I think of Apple specifically. I think about the customer service side. I think about the fact that there's physical Apple stores that you can walk into and take your phone in and get a new screen the same day. You can, and you can go on and on about various things, both in Samsung and Apple, that are kind of outside of the standard spec sheet for the phone. You could say that maybe Google spec sheets at the top end could compare, but that's not the whole. The whole picture for people. And I think that for a lot of different reasons, I mean, even one example too is just the fashion aspect of having the premium phone with the Apple on the back, the status symbol aspect that people get with having the latest iPhone socially. I mean, whether or not you think that's stupid, I mean, I'm kind of on the side that it is stupid. It's still real. We have to grapple with the fact that it's a real thing. And I think Google just realized that they couldn't compete. And so with Pixel 5, I think the overarching story is they needed to capture some of the value proposition of the Pixel 3a while also doing a phone that is, I guess, compelling to your average Android user who's looking to upgrade their phone to something that's, maybe not $1,000, but something that's good and can do all the things they want a phone to do.
Actually, I want to put tie another bow around your first bow. This is from a YouTube commenter, Doug Fry. The first part of his question is, this year's phones feel very iterative. I know we just spent a lot of time talking about the market realities of making a cheaper phone and what sells, but maybe from a technological standpoint, from a marketing, from a having Pixel push the industry forward. Is this a permanent shift, or is this more of a more Google meeting 5 years, doing phones for 5 years, and they need to start showing results from it?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that another aspect of this was that they kind of just needed to build a good phone that was not going to get picked apart by the media, by the Android bloggers, and a phone that would kind of get a checkbox of like, this is a good phone, And I think that was kind of what they achieved this year. That it seems like all the reviews have come in, and that's the major takeaway, is that maybe this phone struggles to compete against side by side with the S20 FE and the iPhone 12, but at least it's a good phone from Google that has no major compromises, and maybe this is a new foundation from which they can build.
Fair enough.
With that said, let's move on and talk about Google Workspace, Google Chat. Google launched or rebranded Google or G Suite, which has long been Google's overarching name for their suite of products that are aimed at, well, they try to make a lot of money on these products from businesses and people who are they do make a lot of money. This is a significant business from the company. Gmail, Calendar, Drive, Docs, Meet. A lot of major organizations pay to use a lot of these products, big bucks, and they have rebranded G Suite to Google Workspace, and they're kind of sort of announcing some of the things that have been announced already for the enterprise side are actually coming to the consumer side, and they've now announced some Google Chat transitions from Hangouts and a lot of stuff like that. So where do we start here?
So I think we should start with the name. So the name Google Workspace, they're basically there's a conceptual theory behind it, which I think is quite clever, is the name G Suite and Microsoft Office. It implies a level of you're working in a physical office, and what the past year has shown is that people are working at homes. They're breaking those molds. Work from home. That's the trend, and the trend moving forward. And I think it's a pretty clever name. It doesn't roll off the tongue like G Suite, I think, at least, but there's a lot of thought to the name, and I think it kind of works. From there, it's as you were saying, it's just everything. The simplest way to think of it is as a rebrand of G Suite, but the name does convey a new direction, that the future of work, the officeless workspace. So yeah, that's the high level why they're doing this. But at a deeper level, I think they're trying to position themselves against Microsoft Office, against Zoom and Slack and all of those, and giving people one product. For the foreseeable future, the benefit is mostly for enterprises, but the rest of us can enjoy lovely new icons that the internet has millions of opinions on. So the the rest of Google's simple icons, consumer-facing product icons that only have 4 colors and simple shapes have made their way to the enterprise products, and they're fine, I guess. Okay, Gmail is good because the shape retains the old one. It's basically now just an M in 4 colors. It's fine. I think my personal favorite is Drive, Google Drive, which is still a triangle, but they added a shade of red, so it's subtle and my favorite, and the one that everybody can experience right now if you update to the latest version of Google Drive for Android, or if you visit drive.google.com, you should see the new icon. But yeah, I guess my question is, so the reason they're all like this, one is because the rest of Google has been doing it, and I guess the mandate or the uniformity has finally come. But the interesting argument that was being made by Google was that these icons, they help show that the products are part of the same service. Like in the case of previously, Gmail, Calendar, Drive, Docs, in fact, they were definitely unique and iconic in their ways, but they didn't show any kind of familial resemblance. And while I agree with that argument mostly, it doesn't address the fact that they all look the same, and there's only so much you can do with 4 colors and simple shapes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of my question is like, it's not just, the thing is, this is not just the Google Workspace apps, although that is a big part of it. This is pretty much every app that Google makes. They're rebranding everything with white backgrounds, simple shapes, and Google's colors. And I don't know if this is going to age well. I mean, maybe, I mean, there's definitely something to be said for unifying or giving everything under the Google umbrella some kind of common identity. But do you have to boil everything down to simple shapes and 5 colors to do that and put it all on a white background? I feel like there's a way that you can create a coherent identity across the apps and the icons and all this stuff without condensing it that far.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think of, for instance, on iOS, there's all of the app icons don't share colors. They don't share any common kind of like blatantly common theme, but Apple did design this kind of underlying app icon kind of grid that it's like all of the app icons in one way or another take advantage of that same grid in some way. And that gave them, for instance, on like the camera app icon or whatever, the center circle is part of the grid, but none of the rest of the icon has anything to do with the grid. And it's like every app is kind of a similar case where there's some element to it which is mathematically, or I don't know, some way we're designed around that that underlying design, but it still gave the freedom to just build the apps to look how, or the app icons to look however they want. And I feel like that's kind of something, that's what Google should have done, which is, not restrict every app to, okay, every icon has to have a white background. Every icon has to be made with only these 5 colors, and you have 4 or 5 shapes to work with. Yes. That's it. And I'm like, it actually makes it harder, because what you end up with is 12, 20 apps on your home screen that you cannot immediately distinguish between, because they all look the same. The only thing that differentiates them is the shape. And
on Android, they're all in the circle. You already have to do 2 levels of visual processing. You have to ignore the circle and then look at the center.
Right. And so
So
I don't know. I feel like they kind of, I mean, I would love to be a fly on the wall when this meeting was happening. And maybe the idea was, okay, we're just gonna, I think I mentioned this on the show maybe before, was that the idea might have been, okay, let's just condense everything down to kind of what the iOS 7 kind of ethos, or under the iOS 7 principle was, we're gonna strip out everything and we're just gonna build, we're gonna just build the most basic kind of design possible, and then after that we can then build back up from that foundation. So
so
maybe we'll see all of these identities evolve into something a little bit more uh, distinguishable over time.
that's yeah. I definitely hope that's the case. But I think Google went one step too far in insisting everything is made of four colors, the exact same four colors, because I think I give them the simple shapes. I think they could do something there. I give them the white backgrounds, but I think the one step they did that made it all too uniform is using the exact same four shades, because that's just limiting. And like you were saying, it's to put it uncharitably, your app launcher looks like different squiggles, different but the same squiggles. And I don't know, I think the color is has a big part to do with that. And adding on to that, I think that what this like do you know, if you look at Microsoft's Office icons, they all feel of the same family, but they're very different. They're
Yep.
different shapes, they're geometric, they use different color palettes, but yet they still
Yep.
maintain that level of consistency. And
Yep.
maybe I think it's just the colors. They're too stringent to the colors. And I think Google's rationale is that those colors convey such playfulness for them historically, from the G animation to the assistant. And I think they need to move away from that slightly or somehow
Yeah.
in order
Well, the thing
to.
is, Microsoft has the same situation. Microsoft's logo has always, well, at least, I mean, I think since they did the most recent rebrand, which was probably like 5 years ago now, has this red, green, blue, yellow, these four colors for the standard Microsoft logo. And if every single Office app used those four colors, I would be making the same complaints. Because
Absolutely.
you're unifying everything under the brand of Microsoft, but you're diluting the ability to distinguish between which app is what. So I don't know. It just feels like a little bit of like a little too, I don't know.
Be together,
Google.
not the same.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Be together, not the same. That's exactly the philosophy that Google needs to adopt with its app icon designs. Anyways,
Yeah.
what else is happening? Google Chat's going free in 2021, and that means Classic Hangouts is migrating into Google Chat. And Google detailed what all of that means in a blog post yesterday.
Yeah. Do you have any other words to say about that at a high level, maybe historically? Do you have any
I
other
think
things
I
you'd
think
like
I'll
to say
just
about that?
I think I'll just let the post speak for itself. And I it's everyone. I mean, not everyone, but I've gotten a few comments from people. Like every time we open an article that says, "As we reported in 2018, comma Google has announced that blank blank blank,"
Mm-hmm.
because it's just
Mm-hmm.
like it's definitely like patting ourselves on the back a little bit right there in the first sentence of the article.
Yeah.
But and maybe that's a fair criticism sometimes, that we don't have to always pat ourselves on the back every time we scoop Google. But this is a case where I think it was absolutely justified, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Okay. So Workspace. Well, the main part of Google Workspace is this integrated Gmail experience where you have chat, meet, and rooms all in one space. And the announcement that Google made about Workspace at the start of the month had a short line about how this experience is eventually coming to free users sometime next year. So in that, Google Meet is obviously free. Gmail is obviously free. Drive, Docs, Sheets, Slides, etc. have been free for years, but Google Chat is not. And so they made it official. It is going free next year as part of these other announcements. And what they're making free is actually notable. So the way Google organizes chat is there's some weirdness to it in how you obviously have direct messages, then you have group conversations, but you also have rooms, which is meant for teams, meant for longer term projects. But to distinguish how it differs from group chats to most people, I think it's going to be fuzzy. But the benefit that Google has in educating people about it is how everybody knows what Slack is. Everybody knows what Discord is. So there is a straight thing for people to have a mental model of. And Rooms is going free. It will be a free offering next year. And I think Google just gave themselves a very interesting way to target Slack and Discord in terms of having these large rooms that are more communities than anything. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. But besides that, it's one-to-one chat. There's some smart features like smart reply. I don't know, chat. You can obviously use DMs however you want them, and you can obviously use group messages however you want them. But they're trying to put an interesting layer of productivity to it, and to help you do personal group projects, etc., etc. And I guess my question right now is, how is this? This doesn't seem to be GChat. And I think that's something that a lot of people want. And I'm curious how hard Google is going to pitch it as a social messaging service. They're probably not going to at all.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of conflicts with messaging and other things. I mean, it seems like, if you just go back a couple years, Google was pitching this Google Chat as the product for Teams, so to speak. The official messaging was Android Messages is for I guess personal use. Yeah, and Duo is for personal use, and then Hangouts Chat was for Teams, and Hangouts Meet was for Teams. And now it seems like a little bit of a confusing message because RCS is still kind of dragging its feet in some ways, and Allo is dead. And now Hangouts, which I feel like this is the confusing thing. Hangouts, the current version, the classic version of Hangouts, as far as I've heard from sources, it still has insane usage numbers. Like you'd be shocked to hear the number of people who use classic Hangouts still every day to chat with people. And so I guess my takeaway from this whole announcement is how many people are they going to retain? Is this going to boost? There's two options here. Either this boosts Google Chat as a primarily enterprise Teams-based kind of product, and that boost will probably be moderate at best, or this is Google trying to pivot Google Chat into being a consumer-facing, social network type chat app. Like I said, I don't see the latter.
No. No matter how much everybody wants them to just have a messaging service where email is your identifier.
Right. So, yeah, the whole saga has been an absolute chaotic mess.
I don't know about your friend group, but or people our age or whatever, but I feel like there's a distinct desire to, if they could, they would get off Facebook Messenger into other services. And I don't know, Google is very the person in charge of Workspace is the person in charge of Google's consumer messaging strategy, and I feel like if the opportunity is there to build a Facebook Messenger competitor, wouldn't you take it? Wouldn't they take it? Because everybody has a Gmail. The barrier to entry is so low, and people don't associate the same feelings on Facebook that they do with Google. So that could make it like a neutral party of sorts on the ubiquity of email. So I don't know.
Yeah, personally, I don't know anyone who uses the Messenger app, but I think that, I mean, as of this week, the Messenger app and the Instagram chat is the same thing now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think Facebook has an absolute stronghold on Instagram chat, which is now Messenger. So,
yeah.
I feel like the Facebook, I mean, it's like, I feel like, honestly, it seems like the direction for Facebook is for Facebook to become solely an overarching brand and not the name of a social platform, because it seems like the Facebook app proper is waning.
Yeah, like it would totally kill the main feed business, but Messenger and Instagram as a separate company, that's a pretty good business. That's a pretty solid business.
Right. So, yeah, we'll see what happens
in terms of Google Chat and going free and its success in 2021. But there are a few other things with the classic migration path detailed. So the migration from classic Hangouts to free chat starts in the first half of 2021. But in terms of how Hangouts is so closely integrated with Fi and voice, Google is going to start untangling those two things. And I think the first thing people are going to see next month is that when they use the classic Hangouts app and they try to make a video call. So if you do a one-to-one conversation, you can still directly call the other person. But Google is also going to give you the option to send them a Meet URL where you can automatically jump into Google Meet. So there's still two options there. But if you want to do a group conversation starting next month with multiple people, you'll have to use Google Meet. So that's going to change, but I'm not sure how many people are using classic Hangouts or video calls. Maybe there's still a lot, but I think that's a logical move. Next up is Fi. You'll stop being able to use Google Fi and Hangouts. In return, Google is going to make the Messages app for Fi users a bit better, specifically the web experience, where you'll be able to make calls and check voicemail. So that's their solution for you. And 2 is Google Voice, where if somebody calls your voice number, it'll no longer ring in Hangouts/Gmail, which that's pretty much expected. But that is the story of Google Chat, and that's Google's roadmap for the next year. So maybe this saga will finally end next year.
Yep. Well, let's move on and round out the show a little bit talking about Google Wi-Fi and Nest Thermostat and some more hardware stuff. Google Wi-Fi was relaunched at $99, and internally, I told you so. I feel like this was the most quiet non-event of the year when it comes to Google hardware.
Fair.
It makes no sense. It made no sense that Google would launch Google Wi-Fi again. And so they didn't. They just put a slightly updated version of the hardware in a box and shipped it with a $99 price tag and quietly put it on the Google Store. There's not really much new with it, really.
Yeah,
That's it.
I don't know. It's the announcement is so baffling. They could have made their launch night in such a bigger feeling event if they included all these products, especially the next product. But yeah, I agree with you. That's it to Google Wi-Fi. There's nothing else to talk about. Literally.
And then Nest Thermostat. So this is the other big thing Google launched in the wake of Launch 9 I guess that sounds like I was calling Google Wi-Fi a big thing. But Nest Thermostat is a new version of the Nest Thermostat that is really weird. It's affordable, $129, so it undercuts the Nest Thermostat E. The Nest Thermostat E is dead now. And the long story short is that it doesn't have the rotating dial of the Nest Learning Thermostat and the Nest Thermostat E. And it does not really learn. It seems like they've stripped some of the automatic scheduling or learning aspect out of the product. With this, seems arbitrary. It seems like it was just they had to strip something out to justify the higher end thermostat's continued existence. And this thermostat it looks way nicer, and it comes in 4 colors, and it is the first Nest thermostat that is built Google Home app first.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the first Nest product that's built Google Home app first?
Well, what do you? Yeah, basically, because you can control the Nest Cam and the Nest Hub Max.
Yeah,
From the
so that's
Nest app.
significant. This is the first Nest product that is made primarily to work with the Google Home app. Actually, it's not going to work with the Nest app at all. So this is further confirmation. I think Google has already said, but this is further confirmation that the Nest app is on its way out to be fully replaced in functionality by the Google Home app for all your Nest products. If you didn't know that, now you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the thing to talk about here is the weird Soli thing.
Oh, before that, I actually do want to jump on the learning aspects of this.
Oh yeah.
Rather, it doesn't learn if you would, but at the same time, it also learns because Google has all these environmental energy saving features. So it's a really weird mix of there are smart features on this. Google will automatically make suggestions to you about how you can change your preset schedule to make it more energy efficient, etc., etc. But at the same time, it doesn't want to change the thermostat. It will not automatically change the thermostat for you. All these suggestions that Google gives you, you have to accept in the Google Home app. It's not automated. And I don't know, it just feels like an artificial distinction. In terms of like the processing power needed, I'm sure everything happens in the cloud, so the command could just be sent to this new Nest thermostat to change the temperature, to automatically adjust the temperature. So I guess I don't get why they didn't include that. Well,
part of me wonders if they're moving away from it. I didn't really pick this up in our briefing, but I feel like, just as someone who has a thermostat E and has used the, I guess, auto scheduling stuff, I'm not sure it's really that good. Personally.
Yeah, you do hear that.
I found myself, for the first year that I had my thermostat, I found myself still adjusting the thermostat pretty often, even though it had been learning for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Maybe I'm curious if maybe they just decided that it wasn't really that smart.
But it totally breaks the idea of like Google as a smart company, as they have this AI to do interesting things.
Right. That's like the most distinctly Google feature about the Nest thermostat, and they're actually walking away from it.
Yeah, Yeah, that's a very good point. If they're moving away from it, that's I think it is long due that they release like a 2.0 of the learning software, and maybe they've been cooking up something for all these years. But yeah, it is common complaint that it's not really that smart.
Yeah, and I guess the question is the kind of smart not really realistic? Because I feel like with my experience with it, I feel like it got a sense of when I wanted certain temperatures scheduled, but I often found that it's highly variable for the day and for the weather outside. I feel like there's so many variables that algorithm, that learning algorithm doesn't take into account. What it does, it seems like what it does is just watches how you change it, and it just says, okay, on Mondays at 8 a.m., he tends to want it at 74. On Tuesdays at 6 p.m., he tends to want it at 68. And it just finds your averages throughout the week, and then it just kind of puts those in a schedule and then does it. But the thing is that doesn't take into account external factors. The only thing that takes into account is which temperatures I'm setting it to, and
It doesn't capture the why you're changing anything.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't catch the why, and it doesn't and the why is usually something very unpredictable and very I mean, it could be, I don't know, it could be like I for for a few months of my life, I'm like going out and working out in the morning at 6 a.m. Oh, I stopped doing that because or I changed my workout schedule. I'm not working out at 6 a.m. anymore. I'm working out at 5 p.m. And so I'm coming home, and I used to want it to be cold when I got home. Now I want it to be warm because I'm not working out in the morning. Whatever the case may be, I changed my life on a whim, suddenly. But it takes what, months, if not a year. I mean, it takes a really long time for the thermostat to catch up to that change. And I don't know about you, but I think most people's lives are that dynamic and that unpredictable that really the thermostat learning which temperatures you want on average is at different times of the day is not going to be that useful because our lives are too unpredictable, unless it was able to track other factors. Like if it was able to pull data from our phones about our schedule and our calendar, and if it was able to pull data about our health, right? If it was able to like that's the thing, like, oh, I'm sick today. I want it to be warmer in the house than I normally would. My Nest thermostat thinks it's a normal Tuesday, and it's setting my thermostat to 67. Like that's a thing that has happened to me, and I'm like, no, like, and I'm going in the app, and I'm like, like, no, I want it to be 77, not 67. I have the flu,
Yeah.
And it's like there's no way for it to know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Google needs a ledger of sorts to how to capture all your data correctly. But I do want to say about when the learning stat was released, it was so this Nest thermostat is almost marks like the 10th year anniversary of Tony Fadell leaving Apple and those other Apple people leaving Apple to make a thermostat, smart home company. And I don't know, but like the early 10s, that's such a weird thing to say, was very much a drive to make smarter products that, I don't know, give you like faux AI features. And
it's a very different world.
It's a very different world right now. And I think the maybe gimmick is a bit harsh, but maybe that it's ready for that to come down, or at least for Google to use the past decade of AI advancements of personalization to do something really smart, frankly.
Right.
And
yeah, right.
when
exactly.
that comes in.
Yeah. But I feel like in the case of the thermostat, they really need way more data to be able to figure out what temperatures I actually prefer in my home. I feel like they just need to. There's so many other things that it has to learn from other than just what temperature I set it to at what time of the day.
Yeah.
So All right. Well, that's the thing. I think that's a pretty good rundown.
Yeah, it is.
Kyle reviewed the Nest Audio this week. Speaking of Nest products, and I think he did a pretty good job with the headline there. $99 Goldilocks pick of Google Assistant speakers. It's like, really, honestly speaking, the Nest Mini is crap. It's pretty bad. The longer I've had them, the more I want to throw them away because the speakers are that bad. And the longer I've had the Google Home Max, the more I want to become an audiophile. And Nest Audio, as we've mentioned, is kind of that perfect Goldilocks, kind of not too cold, not too hot type thing. It's like $99. It's the right price. It's a way better speaker than both the Mini and the regular Nest Hub and the original Google Home. It's basically half of a Google Home Max, and if you want to put two together, you can get that Google Home Max experience, maybe even better. I would like to test that. Put up two Nest Audios versus one Google Home Max and see how this sounds. But yeah, I mean, I think it was a good review, and I think he summed it up well. I think he actually captured the essence of why the Nest Audio is a good buy. It really is. I want to replace all of my minis and all my speakers that I have a Nest Hub in the kitchen now. I'm tempted to just replace it with the Nest Audio because 99% of the things I use my Nest Hub for is just music anyway. So I just whatever.
And it helps to be loud.
Yeah, and just sound good. I mean, if the Nest Mini was as quiet but sounded good, then I don't know. So yeah, that's the Nest Audio.
And I think that's it for the week.
I think so. I think we'll maybe see. I feel like it's still product launch season, and so I feel like there might still be some things that I mean, especially on the software side of things, we'll see announced in the coming weeks and months. We know Apple has a big ARM event for its laptops next month. I don't know if Google's planning on launching any Pixelbooks this year. Probably not.
Probably not.
We will maybe see some more Chromebooks. I don't know. There's plenty of stuff we could be watching for. We'll definitely see some software announcements in the coming month from Google. Although it did seem like everything was kind of scheduled for like a week or two ago. Like everything kind of dropped at the same time.
October.
I don't know. So yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. You can tune into Alphabet Scoop here every week. We record this podcast every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Just depends on the week, depends on the news cycle. You can find us on all your favorite podcasting platforms, such as Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Google Podcasts, and you can also listen directly as we upload the podcast directly to Google 95google.com every week. Thanks for tuning in as always. Thanks to Abner for joining me, and we will see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.